I have a second channel, Cube Comp MTDX. Hey everybody, so we got a computer room for service. This is a relatively brand new pre-built system from iBUYPOWER, similar to what you would get from like CyberPower, for example, or Overpowered. Essentially, it's a system that's built with enthusiast-grade hardware. This is pre-built and sold like, let's say, an HP or a Dell. I have hit or miss opinions on these things. This one is in for service because apparently what they're saying is it's not booting into Windows anymore. So we're going to have a look at that. I think this one has a solid state drive on the motherboard and a conventional hard drive. So we'll just see what happens here when we go to start it. And yes, the scenery here is a bit different. For those who don't know, I am back in my parents' place at the moment, where I'm in the process of getting a new home on my property. So anyways, let's go and start this thing up. Let's see what happens here. That's right, motherboard. And it boots into the UEFI. It's got a B460M Pro 4S motherboard, Intel Core i7 10700F CPU, 16 gigs of RAM. So it is picking up, let's see here, two different SATA devices. So we'll go and open this thing up here in a moment. Okay, this looks more familiar now because I'm pretty used to ASRock boards. I usually build with them. Let's go over here to boot configuration. It's disabled. So it's detecting the hard drive and this other device. I'm going to have to see what's in there. Let's go ahead and open it up. Okay, so got the cover off the system, and there's actually not a M.2 SSD on there. I thought there was at first. This down here is actually the wireless adapter. It's got a motherboard, has Wi-Fi, and I'm looking. I see the hard drive down here. So we'll see why this thing is not booting into Windows. Sometimes, in the case of just having a M.2 drive, sometimes that could get loose. I mean, it's a possibility. Now what we're going to do is we're going to insert our Windows 10 installation media. See if we can do any sort of repairs to an existing Windows install. going to set up here just to see what drives it picks up and what partitions we have. So have a look at this, guys. Somehow or another, we do have an SSD in this system. It got wiped. It's unallocated. There's no partition on it, which is really, really bizarre. We have of course, the 1 terabyte hard drive in here, which is barely got anything on it. So I'm gonna have to double check with the owner of this thing to see what exactly went on. He hadn't had it for long, but somehow or another, the SSD is totally wiped, which is mind-boggling. I'm not sure how it happened. Now, given the issues I had not too long ago when I upgraded the Mid-Tower Lux from Windows 10 1909 to 20 H2, it wouldn't surprise me if somehow something got wiped. I mean, honestly, there's no telling. So it's looking like we're going to have to. It's looking like we're going to have to possibly do a new installation of Windows on this SSD. So I'm going to actually open this thing up and see what we have in here. I think we got a SATA SSD in here. I'm not sure why they would put a SATA SSD when you got a M.2 slot right there on the motherboard, but that's one thing I just simply don't like about these systems from iBUYPOWER and CyberPower and others. I mean, I've seen other tech enthusiasts be critical of these things, and I mean it's not a bad system. It's just when you look at it, it's like why did they not go with the M.2 SSD when the motherboard has an M.2 slot right there? So we're going to shut this down and we'll open the other side up and have a look at our drives. I tell you guys, it's funny, this is the first time I've ever worked on a system built in a modern case like this with a bottom mount power supply and all that good stuff, because for one, partially due to COVID-19, I have not built hardly any new computers, or at least high-end systems. Number two, usually when I build low to mid-range systems, a lot of times are either rebuilds or budget builds where I use an existing chassis to build the system. So there's our SSD. Again, guys, this just kills me. Why'd they use a SATA SSD when they easily could have just used an M.2 PCI Express NVMe drive? Why? Why? But okay, so we got our hard drive back here. So this case has 2 hard drive bays. It's got two spots for 2.5-inch SSDs or a laptop hard drive if you so wish. And of course, got all the cable management back here. I have to say things are. I think I can say things are done pretty well back here. Of course, these modern cases, it's a lot easier to build systems and make them nice and tidy. And of course, I like the access to the back of the motherboard. That way, if you need access behind here to change out your CPU core, if you need to change out this back plate, you don't have to pull the motherboard out. But yeah, it's really, really, really interesting how this SSD here just got wiped. So we're going to have to. It's looking like we're going to have to do a new installation of Windows on here. But I'm going to actually pull this SSD out of here and hook it up to the mid-tower locks and see if there's anything there. And I'm pretty sure there's not going to be anything there. And if there's not, we're just going to have to do a new installation of Windows 10. But again, it's like, why? Why did they put a 2.5-inch SSD, SATA SSD in here when the motherboard has an available PCIe NVMe M.2 slot on the, yeah. You have a much better performing SSD. Okay, so let me pull this out of here and I'm gonna have a look at it. Okay, everybody, so I went ahead and pulled this drive out and hooked up to the M.2 locks, and it was completely wiped. So all I can do is put this back in and do an installation of Windows 10 on it. Now get this, look at this, guys. Talk about cheaping out or cutting corners. How hard would it have been to put 4 screws in this thing, let alone use an NVMe drive in this thing? So I'm gonna go ahead and fasten this back on, and we'll get Windows 10 installed in this thing. Okay, guys, have a look here. You notice how it's hanging up on formatting the drive? Yeah, looks like this solid state drive is bad, most likely. Yep, see how it's hanging up here? So what we're going to do is we're going to order an SSD for this thing, and we're going to go with the NVMe drive, the way it should have been from the factory. Okay, so we got our M.2 SSD. So first I'm going to go ahead and remove the 2.5-inch SATA SSD. Just go and disconnect everything here. Spin this thing around and get in here. Okay, so again the SSD is right here. If I hadn't already shown it, I believe I did, but I'm going to take it out. What we'll do is we're going to let's go ahead and disconnect these two connections here. And we're going to take out these screws. What we'll do now is I'm going to go ahead and return this mounting plate back into the system. In case they ever want to put a 2.5 inch drive in here again. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually leave this SATA cable in here, as well as the power connection. I'm just going to reattach the side panel. I'll have to see if there's a way I can get these screws back to them or whatever. Usually, I'd say a lot of times when you buy SSDs, I think well, sometimes they'll come with screws. It depends on what you're getting. We'll see if we can get those screws back to the owner. Usually he has me do his repair work, so I'll probably just keep them. I'm going to spin it back around. I'll go ahead and take off this panel. It's a pretty nice case. I most certainly wouldn't mind building a system in one like it. Put this off to the side somewhere where it won't break. Okay, so here's our SSD. I just went and matched the size, roughly. Not sure if this one had a 240 or 250 or 256 gig drive, and it was something like that. Let me see where it's sitting. Let's see, 256 gig. Alright, so it is a match. So the system has a 1 terabyte hard drive. So as long as as long as the user stores their documents and files on the hard drive, they shouldn't have to worry too much about disk space on the SSD. Get this fancy packaging for it, of course. And there's the SSD. You'll be installing it right up here. So it appears they did not supply a screw with this one, so I do have one handy, because the motherboard does not have an M.2 screw in it. let's go ahead and mount this in place. Sure it's fully seated. And then we'll get our screw in there to tighten it down. Okay, M.2 drive is installed. And of course that's just showing you how to install it, more or less. So this motherboard has just one M.2 slot because it's a micro ATX board. That's why see, the thing is, usually when I build systems, if I'm using a full-size ATX case, I use a full-size ATX motherboard. I try to. That way, you're getting the most out of what you have, or at least you're making best use of your case. That way, you have a full-size motherboard with more expansion. But apparently, iBUYPOWER, they do things a little differently. Not saying that installing a small motherboard like this in a big case is a bad thing. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not my personal preference. I usually, if I'm building a full-size system, I'll usually spend a little extra money on a full-size motherboard. Anyways, now we can go ahead and reattach the side panel, and we can load Windows 10 on this thing. Okay, we're going to start up the system, and we should be able to see our M.2 drive. Let's go ahead and load into the Windows 10 installer. And there's our SSD. Alrighty, we'll go ahead and start the installation. And this will only take probably about 5 to 10 minutes tops. Let's let it run its course. Okay, so I got Windows 10 loaded on here. The camera died on me during the process, and it missed the part where I went to the out-of-box experience setup, which I've done in many other videos. So a few things I'm going to mention up in closing this video. Number one, the SSD failure, that can't really be blamed on iBUYPOWER. I mean, I don't think that was their fault. It was, of course, the SSD was probably defective, something of that nature. But then again, it's like, why did they use a 2.5-inch SATA solid state drive when they could have used, either for about the same cost, an M.2 SATA SSD, or for a little extra, an M.2 PCIe solid state drive like this drive we just put in here. Much better performing. And this was, I think, about $45 or so. And of course, this video is being shot just before, or at least I've heard on the internet about this new cryptocurrency that that you use hard drives and SSDs to mine with, which is forecasted. They're saying it's going to put a hurting on the storage market. Well, let's hope not. But so that's how much I spent on that SSD, at least right now. So anyways, this one gets me is they could have spent a little extra money, or yeah, a little extra, and got a better performing PCIe drive. Yes, M.2 drive. Considering the motherboard has a readily available M.2 slot. So, but there's a couple other things with this system I'm just not the biggest fan of. Well, the biggest thing I'm not a fan of is that anemic CPU core they chose. Now, since the camera died on me, y'all missed it, but as I was loading into the desktop, I heard the CPU fan ramp up. And at least in my opinion, logging into Windows 10, or at least on a system like this, shouldn't be too much of a stressful task, but it was enough to ramp up that CPU fan. And just look at it. Look at the thing. It looks like something you would find in some cheap E-machine system from 2004 with a Celeron in it. Except the E-machines from that time period had better CPU cores than that. I mean, that thing is just awful. I mean, it's just it's horrible. I'd almost think the Intel stock core would be better than that thing, even though the Intel stock cores are not that great to begin with. Personally, I would have went with a better, or at least a much better downflow cooler, or a heat pipe air cooler, or better yet, I probably would have installed a liquid cooling system in this thing. Now, of course, that could have been ordered. I mean, it could have been ordered, but really, that CPU core there is just, I think it's not quite enough for this. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that CPU would actually thermal throttle under extended load. Now, I'm not going to test that here, but I'm just, you know, just from looks, it's like they could have done better. They could have done better for at least a base level CPU core. I mean, like I say, that thing is it's just not that great. But I do like the case though. It is a nice case to build in. But have to clean up a little bit. That glass, of course, that glass picks up every little thing. But so yeah, I guess I can say it's a done deal. We got our SSD, our M.2 SSD in there. It's all I gotta do now is I got to finish installing software, make sure all the drivers are installed, that good stuff, and configure this user profile to store files on the hard drive, not the SSD. So anyways, as far as this drive, the Pacer drive goes, the one that came in the system, I'm going to hang on to that, and might be a way I might be able to see if I can recover any data off of it. Chances are what's happened to it, it's had an issue with its controller. I don't know if the person had any important files in there. I mean, as far as I know, he had like just bought this computer not long ago. So, yeah, I'll definitely have to look into that. It won't be right now. It might be sometime once I get the new place set up and ready to go. That's why I'm in my parents' house right now. But, so yeah, just gotta get it finished up. But that is this iBUYPOWER system with a defective SATA 2.5-inch SSD. So anyways, hope y'all enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Well, everybody, that's it for this video. But don't forget, there's a lot more interesting stuff on the channel to check out. Also, if this is your first time visiting this channel, feel free to subscribe to keep your channel, and also don't forget to tick the bell so that way you'll get notified of new video posts. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. But if you really didn't like it, there is the alternative
option available as well. Also, feel free to check out my second channel, CubeComp MTDX. There you'll find videos about bicycling, weather, elevator tours, and all sorts of other neat, interesting stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Feel free to come back, and thank you for your support.